And in terms of trying to assess then, Father Reehil, trying to assess whether somebody is actually possessed or not, because obviously, there's probably a greater understanding of psychological problems, psychological issues now as well. How do you actually determine whether somebody's actually possessed or not?
The Code of Canon Law says the exorcist has to have moral certitude to do an exorcism. It's a very broad term. So every conference of bishops interprets that for their specific conference. In America, the USCCB has decided, I think it's the only country that does this too, you have to have both a psychological evaluation done on the subject as well as a medical evaluation. It's obligatory, you have to do it. So it's expensive. A psychological is like $3,000. And you can't ask the person to pay for that. They're suffering, and they usually don't have a job at this point because they can't function. So the church picks up the tab on that. So that's the last resort if everything else is not working. The only caveat to that is I once had a guy levitate off the couch, completely floating in the air. And then I had moral certitude, this is not a mental illness. So we didn't have to do the evaluation on him.
How do you kind of cope with something like that? You see something that's totally unnatural. How do you cope with that yourself, psychologically?
Well, it happened to be at a halfway house way up north by Kentucky. I wasn't even told this guy had a demonic problem. He was just asking for a priest. So kind of like the supervisor of the house called down to Nashville and said, can you come up? He's looking for somebody who does healing and minor deliverance. But it was just a conversation. I had no idea he was possessed. So when I start praying with him, just normal prayers, not even like deliverance prayers, he comes right off the couch and his eyes roll back in his head. And I was just like, oh, no, we're not doing this here. No, this is not happening here. If this is possession, we're going to have to do this at the church, and this is over today. And then I just said, in the name of Jesus, stop. And he came down on the couch, and then I walked out of the room until he composed himself. And then I just said, look, this is bigger than you think, and now we're going to have to do this the right way. So you're going to have to come to me on the church property, and I will be calling the shots, not the demon.